Hello, Diocese of the Rio Grande. I'm sure you know my friend John Gage, who has been actively engaged in our Diocese of the Rio Grande Borderland Ministries for many years. And right now, as you may be aware from following in the news, there have been some changes in the United States policy, and those policy changes are impacting what's going on with the asylum seeker situation along the border, and we want you to understand what we're seeing on the ground and how that is unfolding. As you know, here in the Diocese of the Rio Grande, we have been working to receive a lot of busloads of asylum seekers as they have crossed the border in order to be make their way to sponsors. But now that situation has changed. So, John, tell us what's happening.
Yeah, the situation has changed. The amount of buses that are going to Deming, Las Cruces, Albuquerque, and El Paso, they haven't quite stopped, but they've definitely dwindled down. The numbers are dropping. Also, some of the contracts with these bus companies the government had, they're now letting them expire because they are no longer being needed at this point in time.
Is that because there aren't people coming across anymore?
No, there are people coming. The problem is that due to a new political deal that has been struck between the United States and Mexico, these officials are now being, I'm going to say, detained in Mexico.
So wait a minute. Let me just make sure I'm understanding.
Sure.
I think what I'm hearing you say is some people
Yes.
are coming across and immediately claiming asylum.
Yes.
And those folks used to get on a bus and be brought up to Albuquerque or Las Cruces or Deming in order
Yes.
to be processed and being given a sponsor.
Yes.
So what's happening now is asylum seekers are coming across. They're being apprehended and taken back into Mexico to wait on the Mexican side of the border for their asylum to the United States to be processed. And that means we're now seeing a lot of people on the street in Juarez because Juarez is now receiving all the people that used to be on the buses being received by Deming and Las Cruces and El Paso and Albuquerque. Am I right about that?
That is correct.
We understand that under the so-called Stay in Mexico plan, that it's supposed to only take 45 days from the time you have passed your credible fear interview and you're taken into Juarez until the time you're bussed back across the border to a courtroom in order to talk to an immigration judge. But just think about all of the problems that situation creates for an asylum-seeking family. The families that have no job, no shelter, no place to live, and they're supposed to wait for 45 days in the city of Juarez. When the buses were being brought to Albuquerque, we were sheltering people for 3, maybe 4 days before taking them to a bus station and on to their sponsoring families. That sheltering for 3 or 4 days was something that was reasonable for us to do as the interfaith community. But if we're now looking at a situation where thousands of people are going to be waiting for 45 days without a shelter in Juarez, that's a very different humanitarian problem. Now, it strikes me that there is another issue that then happens. If there's lots of people on the street in Juarez with nowhere to go and no shelter, what happens next?
Well, then you've got to think of it now as there's a money component to this because you have these people that will be desperate to get to the United States, and that would be by any way, shape, or form that they will do that. Now, they will be given misguided information, and that misguided information will come from the cartels. The cartels control the border crossings and who crosses the border and when they cross the border.
From that side to this.
From that side to our side. So what we're already seeing is because the illegal way is kind of impeded, we're now seeing an uptick in the illegal way to come to the U.S.
So if I go to the port of entry, that's a government-to-government
exactly
thing. But if I'm not going to go through the port of entry, then it's the cartels who are running the traffic across the border.
Exactly.
And that's when we're talking about human trafficking.
Exactly.
So if I'm following you correctly, we may see an uptick in human trafficking
Yes.
because of the way this is unfolding.
And that is already happening at this point in time. If I were to show you, these are called, we call these carpet shoes. And what you do is...
It looks like it's a piece of foam.
Yes.
This is like let me show you that looks like a pipe insulator.
Yep.
With strings on it.
Pretty much, those are the laces. Those are your laces. So what you do is you're going to put these on when you're with the coyote. You're going to go ahead and put these on. You're going to lace these up. And this is how you get across to the United States. The reason why is because there's no footprints that is left.
Oh, wow.
So, this set of shoes, they were found 3 miles from the border. We've heard reports that there have been as many as some ranchers have found 10 to 20 pairs of these things just spread out, because what happens is once they get to the United States, especially if they're close to El Paso, they'll go ahead and ditch them, and then they just make a beeline for the city. And because it is a human trafficking issue, these people are picked up,
right?
And then who knows where they go after that.
And now, you used to be an asylum seeker.
Yeah.
You're on the streets of Juarez with no food, no shelter, nowhere to go. In desperation, you're brought across now by a coyote, and now you've crossed illegally. When you came as an asylum seeker, you were legal. Now you're an illegal person caught and deported.
Exactly.
In a different
It's a
sort
felony.
of a way.
Yes, you're charged with a felony.
Wow. We have a relationship with the Diocese of Northern Mexico, and a priest who is beginning to shelter and house asylum seekers who are trying to claim asylum in the United States, but they're not allowed to enter the United States at this moment, so they are being released into Juarez, and he is working to help shelter the people so that they're not on the street in Juarez.
Yes, that is correct.
There's going to still be a need for food and clothing and things like that.
All immediate needs.
All of those immediate needs. But they're not going to be here in El Paso. They're going to be across the border in Juarez.
Yes.
And so part of what that means is we are just in the process of figuring out how do we change and adapt our strategy here in the Diocese of the Rio Grande. Instead of helping the people that are in the United States, because they're not here anymore, trying to figure out how to help our partner in the Anglican Church of Northern Mexico in order to shelter people on that side of the border. I think you said 80 people are
We have 80 people
currently being housed by our partner in the Anglican Diocese of Northern Mexico in a church in Juarez, which if you've been to El Paso, you know El Paso and Juarez are one urban area with a border and a river running through them. So what we're seeing along the border here in the Diocese of the Rio Grande is a dynamic and changing situation, but the humanitarian concerns that we've had for months now are continuing. It's just getting more complicated. So thank you for tuning in, and we will keep you up to date as the situation continues to unfold. And please, we ask for your prayers. Jesus said to take care of all of the least of these, and we want to continue to keep doing that. God bless you. And let's keep the faith together.